During the Thousand Year Blood War arc, the lieutenant of the 11th Division, Yachiru Kusajishi, mysteriously disappears. This plot point is still one of the most mysterious and debated topics within Bleach. During Kenpachi's battle against Gremmy, the pink-haired lieutenant who had been by his side since their fateful meeting in Rukongai had mysteriously ended up vanishing. All that remained of Yachiru were her Shinigami robes and her lieutenant's badge. Fans have speculated for a long time about the true nature of Yachiru's existence and her connection to Kenpachi Zaraki, while some had dismissed her disappearance as a plot hole, with fans even going as far as to say that Kubo had forgotten about her, but others with a brain on their shoulders had assumed that Kubo was planning something deeper all along. The role of Yachiru within the story of Bleach was carefully crafted by Kubo via her relationship with Kenpachi, which was established as early as the Soul Society arc. In this video, I'll be explaining what had happened to Yachiru following the events of the Thousand Year Blood War arc. In order to understand her future in the story, I'll be relying on sources like Kubo's official fan club Klub Outside, as well as mentions of Yachiru within the light novels Can't For Your Own World and We Do Not Always Love You. And Yachiru is also mentioned within the final chapters of Bleach, which are set 10 years after the events of the Thousand Year Blood War arc. So there is quite a lot to cover, as I'll be discussing the true nature of Yachiru, her relationship with Kenpachi, and you definitely want to stick around until the very end of the video, as I'll be revealing the final words that Yachiru had spoken before she had returned to Kenpachi Zanpakuto. So without further delay, let's dive into what had happened to Yachiru after the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. Yachiru had first met Kenpachi in one of the harshest districts of Rukongai. This was the 79th district called Kusajishi. The young Yachiru had reached out to touch the blood-soaked sword of Kenpachi without any hesitation. At the time, this was just an unnamed Zanpakuto, but Yachiru touching this sword in chapter 114 of the manga was the first hint that there was a deeper connection between Kenpachi and his lieutenant Yachiru. It was after this day that Kenpachi had adopted her and had named her Yachiru in memory of the only person that he had admired. The surname Kusajishi was given to her, as this was the name of the district where he had first met her. Kenpachi and Yachiru had built a close father-daughter-like bond. During the Soul Society arc, when Kenpachi tries to find the strongest intruder, it is Yachiru's terrible sense of direction which leads him in the wrong way, but as the story unfolds, while they may be lost together, they somehow always end up exactly where they need to be. On Kubo's official fan club Klub Outside, in question 151 that was asked to him, he had revealed that Yachiru is an aspect of Kenpachi Zanpakuto Nozarashi. It is actually the manifestation of the blade in its bankai form. Similar to how Zangetsu manifests as Tensa Zangetsu in its bankai form, as it takes on a much younger appearance than Old Man Zangetsu, which appears when Ichigo is in his Shikai form. So you can assume that the true Zanpakuto spirit of Nozarashi is actually an adult woman. Names within Bleach are very important, and it was because Kenpachi had actually given her the name Yachiru, which had allowed her to gain Shinigami-like powers, as we see her wielding her very own Zanpakuto Sampo Kenju. This may well be the one and only Zanpakuto spirit in the series which has its own Zanpakuto. In question 419 that was asked to Kubo on his fan club Klub Outside, Kubo reveals that when Yachiru and Kenpachi had first met, and Yachiru had touched Kenpachi's sword as he had questioned her origins, this was actually Kubo attempting to foreshadow the true nature of Yachiru as a Zanpakuto spirit slash aspect of Kenpachi Zanpakuto Nozarashi. During the Thousand Year Blood War arc, Yachiru tries her best to battle against the stern-ritter Gremmy. In chapter 571, we see her unleash her Shikai, as she does not appear to call out a release command in order to use it. Yachiru's Shikai features two creatures that appear and fight alongside her. The special ability of her Shikai features the creatures mimicking her actions, so if she charges towards her opponent and the attack misses, the smaller and larger creature will also attack at the same time, thus making it difficult for an opponent to evade 3 attacks at once, which makes the Shikai of Sampo Kenju pretty impossible to evade. Unfortunately, this isn't enough to defeat Gremmy, as he uses his Shrift ability, the Visionary, in order to transform Yachiru's bones into cookies. Thankfully, Kenpachi arrives just in time to save her, as he advises her to go and find Isane in order to be healed. In chapter 577, we see Yachiru watching Kenpachi as he charges towards the meteorite which Gremmy has summoned. As Kenpachi calls out to his Zanbakuto Nozarashi, Yachiru thinks back to the moment where they had first met in the 79th district of Rukongai. Here we learn that the young Yachiru touching Kenpachi's nameless blade wasn't just a cute character moment. This was quite literally his Zanbakuto spirit making first contact with its wielder. After the dust settles from Kenpachi's battle with Gremmy, we are left with a very haunting image of Yachiru's empty Shinigami uniform and her lieutenant's badge. They were unaware of it at the time, but Yachiru had returned to her true form. As Kenpachi and the other Shinigami begin to search for Yachiru, believing that she has disappeared. The truth of the matter is that Yachiru had stayed alongside Kenpachi to the point where he would finally be able to hear the true voice of his Zanbakuto. We do see Yachiru again for the final time in the manga within chapter 668, but this time she appears as Kenpachi's Zanbakuto spirit Nozarashi. When Kenpachi is overwhelmed by the Sternritter Gerard and smashed into the ground, suddenly Nozarashi appears before him. As she questions what he is doing, he refers to her as Yachiru as she tries to lift him up to his feet, encouraging him to keep fighting with her. He refers to her as Yachiru again, questioning where she has been, as she reassures Kenpachi that if he uses her properly, then there is nobody that he cannot cut. Yachiru's small hand holds the finger of Kenpachi as energy begins to flow into his body, as he wonders what she has just done. Yachiru then reveals that the name of this power which she has appeared to transfer over to him is called bankai. Kenpachi's bankai results in him transforming into a demon-like being who has lost control of himself. And just like Nozarashi had told Kenpachi, he is in fact able to cut through anything, as he splits Gerard in half. So at the beginning of chapter 669, where Yachiru appears as Nozarashi and transfers Kenpachi's bankai to him, this is the final time that we actually see her in the manga. I do think that this entire sequence will be expanded upon within Core 4, and hopefully Yachiru will end up getting a bit more screen time, which will hopefully bring more closure to this moment and help us to accept the disappearance of Yachiru and to better appreciate her new role as Kenpachi's Zanbakuto spirit Nozarashi. Now, following the events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, we do see Yachiru again in a few brief appearances within the light novels and even the epilogue of the Bleach manga. During Can't Be Your Own World, which takes place 6 months after the events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, we learn how Kenpachi has processed Yachiru's transformation. We learn that Kenpachi is still able to communicate with Yachiru in some form. When he speaks with her when Hisagi appears and tries to dissuade Kenpachi from battling against Hikone within volume 3 of the Can't Be Your Own World light novels. Here we see Kenpachi speaking with his Zanbakuto spirit, but he refers to her as Yachiru rather than by her true name Nozarashi. This suggests that he still has a lingering attachment to his lieutenant Yachiru. And unlike most other Shinigami who simply hear the voice of their Zanbakuto, Kenpachi has built a relationship where he can actually properly communicate with it on a casual basis, as it appears as though Yachiru helps Hisagi to dissuade Kenpachi from fighting Hikone, as Hisagi tries to convince Kenpachi that Hikone is a weak opponent, and it wouldn't look good for somebody who holds the title of Kenpachi to be battling somebody as weak as Hikone. So while it seems as though Kenpachi was listening to Hisagi, after a few moments he had started to talk to himself. Kenpachi was actually conferring with his Zanbakuto spirit, as he could be heard saying, "Ah yeah, you're right Yachiru, yeah that's true Yachiru." Following this very brief talk, Kenpachi had backed out of the fight and allowed Hisagi to fight Hikone instead. Yachiru is mentioned in another light novel which takes place 3 years after the events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. Within We Do Not Always Love You, we learn how Yachiru's absence continues to affect the Soul Society. We get a bit of an emotional moment through the perspective of Isane, who is actually one of the last people to have seen Yachiru. In preparation for the marriage of Rukia and Renji, Isane is carrying on Unohana's tradition of hosting flower arrangement classes. Aside from being Kenpachi's lieutenant, Yachiru was the former president of the Shinigami Women's Association, so her impact on the Soul Society was profound. This is further emphasized within this light novel with this bittersweet detail as we learn that Isane still keeps these shelves stocked with Yachiru's favorite sweets. Again, it's a reflection of how much of an impact that she had on the day-to-day life of the Soul Society. Isane also recalls her final interaction with Yachiru while she was treating her injuries, as the We Do Not Always Love You light novels provide us with Yachiru's final words said in front of Isane. After Kenpachi calls out to his Zanpakuto Nozarashi, she exclaims, finally Ken-chan can call out to me. This wasn't just Kenpachi calling out for his Zanpakuto for help, but it's him finally being able to hear and acknowledge his Zanpakuto's true voice. The mention of this brief moment within We Do Not Always Love You is an excellent way to give us some closure to the character of Yachiru. The next time that Yachiru is chronologically mentioned within the story is during the 10-year epilogue, which takes place within chapter 685. So during Rukia's captain promotion ceremony, we are introduced to Kenpachi's new lieutenant Ikkaku as well as Yumichika. There's some confusion as to where Kenpachi needs to go, whether if it's at the Squad 1 barracks or the Squad 13 barracks. Kenpachi insists that Yachiru was always responsible for his bad sense of direction, as he decides to head for the Squad 13 barracks, going totally in the wrong direction. Eventually they end up heading to the 1st Division barracks as they are scolded by Soifon for being late. It is really nice that even 10 years after the events of the 1000-year Blood War arc where Yachiru had disappeared, Kenpachi still brings her up and keeps her memory alive. Even though her true name isn't Yachiru and she is in fact Nozarashi, his Zanpakuto spirit, Kenpachi will forever remember her as Yachiru Kusajishi, thus emphasizing the impactful role that she played during her time as a physical manifestation within the world of Bleach. With her returning to the Zanpakuto of Kenpachi, it's the start of something new, and hopefully I would love to see more interactions between Kenpachi and his Zanpakuto if the Bleach manga continues via the Hell arc. It would be great to see Kenpachi just talking to himself, but he's actually speaking with Yachiru, similar to how he does so within Can't Be Your Own World. From their fateful meeting within Rukongai to all of the battles that they had fought side by side, to the moment that Kenpachi had finally awakened his Shikai and Bankai. Through this journey we learned that Yachiru was more than just a lieutenant. She had guided Kenpachi until the moment that he was ready to hear and call out the true name of his Zanpakuto. Despite her having disappeared, she still maintains a very strong presence within the Soul Society, and all of this is making me really excited to see how Yachiru's role is going to be expanded within Core 4, where she appears in front of Kenpachi and transfers power to him, which allows him to activate his Bankai. I do think that this moment definitely needs to be expanded upon within the anime, and I'm really excited to see what additional closure they will give to the character of Yachiru. But we have reached the point of the video where I do want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about the disappearance of Yachiru and her future role within the story after the 1000-year Blood War arc? Do you think that we will get to see more of Yachiru's character in Core 4 or even during the Hell arc manga continuation? I'd love to know all of your thoughts, so definitely continue the discussion in the comments, and if there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about Yachiru's role in the story after the 1000-year Blood War arc, then do let me know. And lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.